Oh, there we are. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to AI Would Agree for this week. Seems like I've got a little bit of lag on my screen, so bear with me while I try and adjust some settings here. Thanks, everyone, for coming along. I can see that everybody's kind of a bit surprised that we've rebranded at the moment. Really? Wow. Wow. Well, that was a problem. Yeah, thanks StreamYard for that new feature that really worked really well there. Appreciate what seemed like a really great idea. Let's start again. So, hi everyone. Welcome along to this week's AI Would Agree. Hopefully, the recording stays pretty stable now. And yeah, TMAC have rebranded. So everybody who's coming along to the show today, much like when we were at the expo the last couple of days, everybody's been quite surprised to see that there's completely new colours, logos, branding, brand name. Yeah, we are now MOJO-CX, technically powered by TMAC, I guess. So good to see everybody along. Why the rebrand? I've kind of made no hiding of the fact that we always intended to bring all three products together under one roof. So Listen, Act and Learn are now kind of moving under one roof. We've begun that process at speed as we go now, and just kind of a little bit of a different feel for our marketing and tone of voice for our customers. So growing out of that data science consultancy phase that we started off in, moving much more into our comfortable shoes in SaaS now. I guess the cheeky chappies of the SaaS world, and it's interesting to see where it'll go. But hopefully everybody likes the colours. Brand new website launched. Marketing team's done an absolutely fantastic job of launching that new website, and I hope everybody kind of feel free to give it a visit. Let me know what your feedback is. Tell me whether you like it or not. Without any further ado, this week's guest is none other than Clinton Cohen from iContact BPO in South Africa. Welcome, Clinton.
Hey, thanks, Paul. Great to see you.
I mean, at least we did get to actually have the show, because I was a bit worried there that nothing was going to happen for a second. But yeah, we are finally here. So great to have you along. How are things going?
Beautiful spring, summertime here in South Africa, and great to be on the show. Great to be connecting with you. And in our world of a BPO, tremendous excitement and interest being attracted to the shores of South Africa. So an absolutely fantastic time to be in the forefront of BPO work in South Africa.
Fantastic, good to hear it. And like you guys are great. I've been chatting with you for quite a while, and you're one of the few BPOs in the space that's actually really quite active on LinkedIn as well. So it's nice to kind of see somebody else who's out there and doing things in the marketplace to get themselves noticed. You guys do it really well. Clinton, before we kind of get started on anything else, I always ask all my guests, what's the story of how you ended up involved in contact centres in the first place? What drove you to it? I mean, it was probably an accident, but what was the accident?
Yeah, Paul. Many times to discuss it. It's not for the chosen few. It's for the few who choose. And my journey not dissimilar for how I got here, but really started my entrepreneurial career post university, and always had a flair and interest in various different business interests. My partners at the time, who are part of the Alphabet Group Holdings Company here in South Africa, were getting a lot of inquiries to do everything other than what the legacy of the business started around domestic debt collection here in South Africa. And those expressions of interest was to do everything in the BPO lane. And I was transitioning out of a hospitality world and known both the brothers from schooling days, and they said, Clint, we need an owner, operator, driver of the business, and come have a look and see what you think. And I joined the business in November 2015, and have had the absolute privilege of learning, growing, and having a very well seasoned, experienced board to lean on and guide some of those tremendously entrepreneurial conversations in our growth path.
Awesome. Yeah, we've spoken to a couple of CEOs. I mean, especially in the South Africa space. Like you hit the nail on the head there. That entrepreneurial spirit, which is very much alive in South Africa, and I've mentioned a few times, I kind of feel like a kindred spirit with a lot of the South African people, because like I very much think that I feel the same way about a lot of things, and it's always good to see the passion that specifically you drive into that area. One of the topics that we want to kind of belabor a little bit in this conversation was around the quality assessment, quality assurance, I guess, the quality assessment space within the contact centres. We've seen a lot of change in that space over the last couple of years in terms of everybody's working hybrid working now, remote working, on-site working. How has that changed for you guys specifically, and how do you see that as being, how has it evolved over the last 2-3 years?
Paula, I mean, it's such a large subject, and I think we could probably end up speaking about this for weeks. But we'll keep it short and limited. But you know, in any contact center, in any business, for the most part, you know, quality assurance is such a deep and needed business process to anything, whether it be through customer experience, whether it be through sales. And there's various different stages. And you know, the way we've seen it in our organization, particularly in the last, you know, to your point, 2-3 years, whether it was due to the facts of COVID being a disruptor in the market and technology needing such a dramatic acceleration forward, we've seen the whole world just transform, whether it be through all the AI, whether it be through speech to text analytics. And we've seen this wealth of information really kind of come together in a far more meaningful way. And that's what I've really loved about what you guys are doing at MOJO-CX in terms of your technology stack and how you guys are putting together that it's in a single platform, that it's so rich with the data, but not just the data, it's the insights and how to act on it. So again, you know, I mentioned speech to text and, you know, now being able to quality assure 100% of the volume. And then, you know, if you want to go into the manual interventions and sample selected random, but having the tool to do all that and draw it into one platform gives you so much more access to meaningful, nuanced, meaningful, deliberate, focused attention on areas of improvement in order to improve employees' development, as well as meeting client, you know, KPIs and contractual commitments that an outsourced offshore operator would need to deliver on.
Awesome. Thanks for the kind words. Appreciate it. Yeah, I think a lot of businesses have seen that huge spike in demand, inbound as well as the business processes. There's this kind of squeeze going on between how do we operate on the bare minimum amount of people, and it's kind of always been there, but I feel like it's been accelerated a lot over the last couple of years. That almost the extras that people used to do out of goodwill are now being kind of rolled into what's expected of them on a daily basis, which is in part of that whole huge challenge around churn and retention and quiet quitting that we've seen. Combine that into the kind of QA space where businesses could only ever get after 1 or 2% of their calls in the first place, or their conversations in the first place, manually. Have you seen a lot of challenges in your space in terms of how that's directed and how that's being scored against the agents in like feedback terms?
Yeah, I think what the technology does today is it really allows for the coaches, whether the coaches, trainers, together with the quality assurance department, really gives them a lot more efficiency gains, within their particular lanes. So quality assurance, for example, now has tremendous amounts of data. They can now, score it effectively. The benchmark standards are easy to change weightings. So, in for example, in an initial program where you want to get certain metrics right, or, at benchmark levels, great. Now those have been achieved. Now, what are the other levers that you want to play with or change? And, those affect those quality measures. But again, I think that technology allows quality assurance to focus in a far more deliberate way. And then taking that out from quality assurance, the coaches, the trainers can then go back and support agents again in a far more meaningful way with the right information at hand, and coach them on specific areas rather than a randomized call, which I might think, Clinton's a great agent, but that was one sample, one call of Clinton's superb and 99 terrible. I've missed 99 opportunities to make Clinton great. And I think that's where you're seeing tremendous amounts of improvement coming through, not only from the quality assurance aspect, but throughout the contact center.
I think there's probably a little bit to be said about that knowledge that the agents themselves have been observed as well. Like I remember being in the call center back in the day, about it was 20 years ago, and we used to play word games. How many random words can you get into that conversation? Because we knew it was a numbers game, and we knew that the likelihood of somebody listening in that conversation that we were having was infinitesimally small. But I guess if, as an agent, you're of the understanding of those sorts of technologies being deployed within the call center, it kind of makes you much more aware of what it is that you're actually doing on the conversations, and move it away from the games that agents like to play. That whole being watched sort of scenario really does kind of drive the right kind of behaviors for people. I guess you've got to be careful though that it doesn't go too far the other way, right?
Absolutely. And I think it's always the balance of it being managed correctly. And I think, following on what you're saying there, again, we know that through the use of technology and, far greater self-service streams where customers are now preferring to, try problem solve queries. What it's then becoming to for the agents is really allowing them to step into that part of the conversation where they can drive resolution, where they can drive impact for, some of those maybe self-serve automations that may particularly fail, or the client's just not really getting that wealth of information that they need. So you're seeing, and I know we speak about it in the contact center world, but what we're seeing is that need for a highly skilled, highly specific agent really coming in. We're now dealing with, subject matter experts who are able to assist and able to supply and apply customers with the information they're critically looking for on their various stage in the touch points.
Yeah, it's interesting. And I think, much the same as in the technology space, I'm a big believer that you should have that SME knowledge. Like there's no point trying to deliver contact center technology in without understanding what's going on the call face, what's happening in that front end. And so it makes sense that from a contact center's perspective, you want to have that same sort of SME knowledge from your side of things in order to delight your clients as well. I guess one of the questions I've seen banded around a lot recently is around how coaches and QAs interact with the agents themselves, and kind of how often should the coach be coaching, how often should the QA be coaching, and how do you might find that I guess the balance so that both are coaching fairly, you're not getting too extremes as an agent, combined with how's that affected by remote working? There's a lot to unpick there. Sorry, I threw a lot at you there, but I'm just curious to know what your thoughts are on that.
Beautiful. I'm going to try and unpack it. And again, if I think there's about 15 questions loaded into there, but please keep me honest and bring me back into the area. I think if I start firstly with remote working, well, we kind of definitely seen change was moving from a brick and mortar facility to remote working. The size of a team leader to agent ratio, certainly needed to reduce. And needed to reduce because of the need to kind of be able to personally connect with your team members in a far greater way. Different in a brick and mortar where you've got a row of agents and you can walk up and down and manage 10 to 15 and the team's right in front of you and you can tap someone on the shoulder. But I think in those remote spaces, again, not to say that the technology isn't there, because it certainly is, where you can have your entire team online and, reach out and connect with someone. But we're seeing a lot more of the efficiency gains by just reducing those teams to a little bit of a smaller size in order to connect with your remote team in a deliberate, meaningful way. Sometimes we feel those bigger teams just get a little bit lost. Coming back into the coaching and training and, how often should it happen? I think what we're starting to see, and we know every opportunity to be able to coach and train on, to see an agent improve is a wonderful opportunity. But, when you think about the size of contact centers today, what we're starting to drive or derive from the data that's coming through of those coaching opportunities is more around themes. What is that skill gap or the skill set gap that's missing that we've seen consistently come through a range of agents, where now coaches, trainers are able to, whether after shift, whether before shift, whether in classroom settings or otherwise, that regroup and train on those skills gaps that could possibly be missing, giving the benefit to a greater classroom rather than the individual. But I think the quickest wins are those one-on-one interactions that you see, where there's small nuances that have such a big impact that if you could change today, I don't need to wait another 8 hours for Clinton to fail on the rest of his QA processes today. If it was a small tweak or change in a compliance read through or a sales delivery statement that needs to be made, or even on a customer care, whether it's, through that professionalism, tone or empathy that just remember to keep it human. We're all human and we're all needing that help as an end user customer. That's going to drive far greater impact to the end user customers than kind of sticking to that quality assurance scorecard that's pass or fail. There's so many other nuances underneath that.
Yeah, I think that's something that we've seen quite a lot of. Is it's not always about what you say, it's how you say it. And even just going down to basics, like, I'm sorry, all I can do for you is give you a £5 goodwill gesture. Well, actually, you just framed it in a really negative way for the customer, and they're going to latch onto that. And if you give them anything like that to latch onto, that's how they see it in their mind. Then all of a sudden, regardless of how good a job you've done, you've delivered really bad customer service to that person unintentionally through trying to do the right thing. So I think for me, one of the things I love about technology is the ability to kind of scale things up that are really hard to train out. And for me, it's that behavioral science aspect, being able to pass some of that on through technology to agents without necessarily have to give them the training or understanding of what it is that they're doing, just the confidence that they can use it and it'll have the desired outcomes, and then proving it time and again. And I think that goes back to the coaching thing, right, is where you've got coaching actions being taken, being able to prove what works and what doesn't as a business is crucial. Being able to track that step by step and day by day, so your coaches understand how they're doing.
Absolutely, and I think it gives the coaches, to your point, that feedback where they can improve too. And what I love about your technology, again, is it's a single platform that houses all of this stuff, right? I mean, you don't have to go to 7,000 different Excel spreadsheets or manual interventions, and, it's tracked, it's clear and cut for the agents. The coaches can see Are they being effective? If not, tweak their approaches in terms of how to deliver or how to coach that message from quality assurance to give them full line of sight. And really from a contact center perspective, from the management teams that are looking at this all day, every day, are they seeing those improvement wins? So I think that's, a very big well done from your guys' side.
Thanks. Oh, the tenner's in the post, Clinton. I'll buy that pint the next time you're over in the UK. You let me know when you're here. Yeah, but I think it's, the more I speak to people, the more I realise that there's a lot changed over the last 2-3 years, and I still don't think we've even come to terms with how much things have changed, and yet the basics stay the same. Meanwhile, there's a lot of businesses that are just getting carried away, and I have this conversation all the time. I talk to people about what we do, and it really confuses them when one of the first things I say is like, yeah, we're a technology provider, but I don't care about the technology because it's irrelevant. And I just let it sink in for a couple of seconds, because that's got to be the case. It's categorically got to be the case. The technology isn't what drives your business's performance. It's the people. And the more people remember that, the better. The reason we're driving such good results is because we're simplifying what happens for the agents and the leaders, to give them the information they need when they need it. And that should be the focus of all businesses. Like, that should be a basic ask. When you're going to do some sort of change or transformation, you bring a new technology in, whatever you're doing, how does it impact the end user?
Paul, it's bang on. I mean, the technology today is an enabler of how the human being's going to deliver, and being it from managers, coaches, trainers, to even the agents. You mentioned an earlier statement which kind of piqued my ears a bit, and that was, sometimes you frame a negative statement and, sorry, we'll give you a discount, or, sometimes what we're realizing today, agents may not have that ability, and sometimes it's okay to say to a customer, no. But I think what's important is the overall narrative for any customer service sales agent needs to know. Do right by your customers first. That needs to be the overarching, whether I'm going to fail on my QA scorecard because I stepped out of my lane, but I did good by the customer within my knowledge domain of what I can do for them. As long as I'm resolving their satisfaction and they're going to leave that call satisfied, enabled, brand loyal, the fact that I might have stepped out and failed on a quality mark that could have given me an auto fail as an agent, given me a 0, I did right by the customer. And that should be the stuff that stands out 10 out of 10 all day, every day.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I lived and died by in retail. When I think back to my in-store days in retail, it was very much a case of, here are the procedures, here are the rules that you can never ever break, regardless. But here are the rules that, when the time's right and the customer's situation's right, and you'll know when, you've got my confidence and my back in that. When you make that decision, I will stand by you, even if you made the wrong choice, as long as you make it for the right reason. And I think that's really important, to have that sort of trust with your team, in that they know that they can make those choices, not all day long, when the situation's right, when that exception arises, but they've got to be able to make that judgment call, or at least ask for some advice as to whether that judgment call needs to be made. I think it's a really key point. You're right.
Absolutely. I mean, I just want to bring the context to that statement. Discussing with a good friend over the weekend, and the conversation was around, in his business process, a client possibly wanted to cancel, didn't understand his account query, and the business process said, transfer to the retentions department. Now, he knew that he'd be able to explain this call to the customer in a manner that the customer would understand the query and why this billing took place like it took place. And he managed to resolve that query. Now, when he got a QA scorecard, he got a 0 because he didn't transfer to retentions, but he won a loyal customer, which ended up going up all the ranks, up the organization to the CEO. And, the knock-on critical impacts that it would have on him as an agent would be seen that he wouldn't get his bonus, he missed his KPI, all those other knock-on because of a business process that he didn't hand over to retention. However, he took the onus upon himself to explain it in a far more meaningful way. And that's what just highlighted to me again that it's so important to understand why do we have the processes we have. But again, if I'm able to put the customer first and I'm able to assist them in the manner that is deliberate and meaningful, the results are always exceptional.
It's an interesting conversation. It's one we've had internally around specifically that sort of situation where the business processes, the transfer to retention, is exactly that. And you should have experts on call that are skilled at saving that customer from leaving the business. But what if you could make your frontline agents that expert, as that guy's obviously demonstrated his ability to do that job is there. So why not give him the tools to do it rather than create that one extra step of friction for a customer where they're possibly going to have to explain themselves all over again to a fresh person and increase that likelihood to lose the customer as a result. Actually just empower the first agents to be able to drive that forwards on a regular basis, not just on a one-off basis. Retention is one of those things that's kind of, there's a lot of polarization. There's a lot of polarization across contact centers in general, to be honest. Don't mention scripting. Yeah. But in terms of retentions, it baffles me why your average frontline customer service person who's spent the last 20 minutes talking to a customer and getting to know them then has to refer them to a retentions team who the customer's going to have to start all over again, and they've lost any rapport that's already been built. Start all over again, longer call, potential escalations. The risk's huge. So I'm all for kind of, and I did this in retail, was multi-skilling everyone as much as possible. It's my German discount retail background. But get everybody as highly skilled as possible. Don't pigeonhole them unless they want to be pigeonholed, unless they don't have that skill set. And some people don't. That's fair.
Yeah. Spot on.
So I guess we're kind of coming up to the 30-minute mark, Clinton. Like, as with our previous conversation, I could probably go on and talk with you for the next hour or two, but I don't think anybody will be still listening to us, but just be us, me rambling on probably. What's next for iContact this year? I'm curious to know. I've seen you guys doing a lot of push, a lot of advertising, and I know you're growing at a decent rate. What's the next steps for you guys? I'm keen to hear.
Paul, what's really exciting about South Africa is the landscape opportunity, and particularly, I think everyone knows the value proposition that's coming out of South Africa, but with a great sense of English servicing international markets, and the kind of great resignations happening, globally. There's a tremendous amount of interest attraction into our South African market. What I am seeing from us, and as an organization with individuals winning certain accolades, we're doing the right thing. We're doing the right thing as a business. And I think it's about just continuously grow the business in far more deliberate ways, surrounding ourselves with experts, not suppliers, but partners, not with clients, but partners, and really just strengthening relationships in a far more meaningful way and delivering excellence. So we're super excited about the year ahead and can't believe already, 24th of November, Christmas around the corner. It's this year's flown, and just so wonderful to kind of put COVID in the past, but who knows? COVID's going to get replaced with a different kind of disruptor. So whilst it's fantastic to be able to go out and give people hugs and international transport travel visits are happening, it feels like things are opening up. But again, just tremendous excitement for the year ahead, and just great to be on that trajectory and path.
Fantastic. It's an exciting business to be involved with, and certainly, like you say, in the South African market. I can't wait to see what's ahead in the next year for not just yourselves, but everybody who's involved in that GBS and BPO space. Clinton, have a fantastic Christmas and good luck for the team for the new year, because it sounds like you guys are going to have a cracking new year. And let's chat again sometime in the new year. Take care.
Perfect.
Thanks everyone for joining us.
Take care. Bye.